episode of the WisMissus Podcast, reading, writing, and roaming around Wisconsin, the Midwest, and beyond. I'm Valerie Biel. I am an award-winning author and a publicity, public relations, book marketing, author services person.
And you're tremendous at it. I couldn't be where I am without you, I just want to say. So you come highly recommended.
Well, thank you. And you are?
I am TK Sheffield. I write books for readers who want to laugh and escape. I have an award-winning mystery series called The Backyard Model Mysteries that was inspired by my backyard. My husband and I purchased a fixer-upper, and I walked outside and I said, this is it. I finally found the place where I can be an author and write what I love to read. So I write mysteries that are, you could probably describe them as funny cozies, and they are free of bad language and vulgarity, politics, and anything like that. But they are fun, and they describe Wisconsin life. I have been told they describe Wisconsin life to a T. Their books served with a brandy old fashioned and a side of cheese curds. So
perfect.
Oh,
perfect. And well, they are very humorous. I enjoy your books very much. And before we get into this, we should say, you know, your first book came out last fall, right?
Correct. And the second one, that was Model Suspect, which you can see right there.
That's right.
And this is Model Wave, and it will be out May 22nd.
Hold it up again. I want to see it. For everybody who's just listening in, she's holding up a cover, and it's got like the, you know, proof for ARC, you know, band across it. But it's a lovely, a gal looking out over a beautiful Wisconsin lake with a pontoon boat.
Pontoon boats. The subtitle is Romance, Boats, and Bad Business in the Wisconsin North Woods. So if you want to laugh and escape, have a beach read, right? And just enjoy it and act like it's like vacation in a book.
That's right. Well, and I think that's, you know, here's the deal too. Like the majority of us now, there's a lot of people who write very serious nonfiction. There's very serious memoir, whatever. But I am just happy if my books entertain people for a little while and they enjoy it and come back for more. So
right. Well said. And one other thing, I'm reading two others. Joy Ann Rybar, she also writes cozies. I'm reading hers. It just came out, the Deep Wedded Blues book.
Oh, yes. Yes. Now that would be, I think, is that her fifth or sixth book?
I believe it's, I think it's a fifth there. I don't have my glasses. Fifth.
Yeah. And I think she's got a prequel. So there's like a 0.5 before you get to number one.
Oh, so, great. They're fun reads. They're very fun reads. And she's a wonderful writer and a wonderful person. And the other one is Maggie Smith has a thriller out, which I also read and reviewed. Really enjoyed it. That's called Blind Spot by Maggie Smith, another Wisconsin writer. And if you enjoy a thriller set in Wisconsin with local landmarks in Milwaukee, you'll really like that one. If you like thrillers, and Maggie's great. She has a podcast too, and we love her. So
I've read Joy's other books, haven't read that new one yet. So you're ahead of me. Don't give anything away. I'm not done.
I'm not as busy as you. We'll just put it that way. How about that?
I mean, it depends. I've been reading different things. And my recommendation just lately is Nick Petrie's books, his Peter Ash thriller suspense series. Holy cow, is that a wild ride? And there are 8 books out in that series. And he's fabulous. Also lives in Milwaukee, or, you know, he's a Wisconsin guy. I can't say enough good things about that series. So there's so many great writers in Wisconsin.
So many great writers and great indie bookstores. So you know, my position living here, loving this place. And we had a wonderful conversation about how you can say you live in Wisconsin without saying that you live in Wisconsin. Ironically, we both, as we're doing this podcast, we both have tractors in the fields right near us. We had to close our windows because they were making tractor sounds.
I was like, can you hear that? Oh, I better shut the window. You know, I'm watching the tractor go down the road and I know it's going to be.
And I wouldn't have it any other way. Literally wouldn't have it any other way. This is where I love to be and write about and exist.
It is it's May 6th. It's the first Monday of the month. It is a gorgeous, beautiful day out there. The sky is completely blue, at least where I am. You're not too far away from me. I am assuming you have the same sky probably today that I do. We're only about 45 minutes an hour apart driving distance. But this is why a day like this is why we put up with the winters.
Yes. Because they're glorious. These spring days, the sun rises. I'm an early riser. If you go to my Instagram, the Backyard Model, you'll probably see a gorgeous sunrise every day because they just are, and they're gone in a heartbeat. I can look out and see this gorgeous pink and orange,
And
and
then
then all
it's,
of a sudden in a minute it's gone, and I try to capture it as best I can. But it is truly a lovely place with 4 real seasons and great people, you know.
and I'll take your word for it. I just enjoy your snapshots of the sunrise. My husband is sometimes up that early, but I'll do sunsets. You can do sunrise, and that will fit
It's
our
fair shake,
schedule.
fair deal, no problem at all. I love sharing sunrises with people, and I'm one of these people. I wake up energized. I'm a more early riser. I don't even need coffee. I didn't start drinking coffee till I was in my 30s.
No
I'm just the
way.
way I
No
am.
way.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. I didn't.
Wait, did you have your kids before age 30?
No. After.
Did you start drinking coffee when you had babies?
Yep. Yes. Yes. There's nothing like disrupting your sleep than, infants.
Oh, yeah.
But
No, I'm kind of an addict on the coffee front, but
oh, you are? Oh, well, we'll have to have a podcast about your favorites. But
oh,
but
we
speaking of,
could.
one more thing I wanted to add. I combine my books are, the Backyard Model Mysteries. So I combine fashion with my love of the state and Wisconsin culture. So I saw the new movie with Anne Hathaway that just came out, The Idea of You. Have you seen it?
I've seen like the promo ads for it, but I haven't watched the trailer or anything.
Oh, okay. It's
So,
it's worth a watch. It's based on a book.
okay.
The Idea of You. So, I don't want to give too much away. In terms of the movie, I'd give it a B plus, but in terms of the fashion and the color story, I
Oh,
would give it an A plus. We needed an update of The Devil Wears Prada, right? We needed another rom-com, or they call this a mom-com, that showed us the current fashion and styles and trends. And I tell you, I just immersed myself in what she was wearing, and Anne Hathaway looks amazing. And I would just give the stylist an A plus on that one. It was so luscious to watch it. And I don't want to give too much away about the movie itself. You got to
okay.
watch that on your own. But anyway, it's worth a look if you like fashion and style.
Well,
Anyway.
and I'm always looking for something new to watch. And I mean, we're a little bingy here on different like series and stuff. But
What are you binging on?
we just finished up For All Mankind on Apple TV.
Oh,
It is a alternate history series. It is there's four seasons out, and we binged through all 4 seasons. And it is basically what happens when the Soviets get to the moon first.
what were
And
they wearing?
they did a wonderful job
Tell
with
me
this
about the
timeline.
fashion. What were they
Well,
wearing when they got
and
to
the
the
thing
moon
when you
first?
do period pieces like that, right, where you're going through the different eras, and every
Yeah.
season time jumps like
Yeah.
5 or 10 years. Even we were joking about the kitchens and how
Oh,
they
yes.
nailed that 70s kitchen, the Brady kitchen, right?
Yes.
Or
But
is that a
that
60s kitchen?
It adds to the element of the storytelling when they do when they hit it, right? When they get it
Yeah.
just right. And I'm a writer, so I appreciate the dialogue and the plot and the pacing and everything else, of course. But at the same time, when you can see something visually and they nail the era and certain aspects, my husband and I love Columbo. And there is so much embedded in those old Columbo episodes that you can point to and say, look at what was happening at the time. And it's just based on what he was wearing or where it took place. So
Yeah.
important, I think, in terms of storytelling.
Well, and it's just great fun. And the thing that we've been enjoying about that series so much is that you have to really watch the first like 30, 40 seconds of the show. They do like news, like headlines that flash across the screen, but it's like a different person won the presidency than history, tells us,
Oh,
whatever, or that we remember. And it's just fascinating then the decisions that get made based on different policies that took place. And
wow.
it's been pretty fabulous. So
Oh, that'll be a
I don't
fun one to look forward to.
yeah, I would recommend it. Let's get into our topic. Today, we are interrupting our regular scheduled programming because there's been a lot of talk out there on in author circles and publishing circles, on Medium, Substack, where else? Everywhere. I don't know, everybody's blogging about this or they're posting about this on social media. So there's a book that came out based on the trial. It was the Department of Justice versus Penguin Random House, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was Penguin Random House, if you remember back a year or so, they wanted to purchase Simon and Schuster.
Mm-hmm.
And Department of Justice stepped in to, it's an antitrust case, like a monopoly case, saying that they would, their assertion, Department of Justice, was that this would create a monopoly in publishing if they allowed Penguin Random House to acquire Simon and Schuster. So we know that the disposition of that case was that they were denied. They weren't allowed to purchase Simon and Schuster, having trouble with that. And they were then subsequently purchased by a different kind of company that didn't create a monopoly, I guess.
Right. Private equity, right? KKR, I think private equity bought it.
Yes, there you go. Thank you. Glad you know that. And then this book came out, and the book is just The Trial. And it's just a transcript, right? It's a transcript that got compiled.
Right, and Elle Griffin wrote an article, right? She wrote this article, nobody's buying books anymore.
Yes. So the one that we're referring to, and then people have been rebutting her article, and it's a fascinating unpacking of statistics as were provided in the testimony of publishing executives, agents, and authors, famous authors. Many were called to the stand during this trial. So we've got this really interesting, look into the traditional publishing industry and some of the assertions that were made. So Elle Griffin, this was, I believe, on Substack. And then I had printed out Lincoln Michael, Michel, M-I-C-H-E-L, has a rebuttal article. And the title of her article is "No One Buys Books," which of course is sensationalistic because we know that's not true.
Right. It's the teaser title that gets the clicks, right? Nobody buys books anymore. Well, so if you do a little bit of a deep dive, if you compare both of those two articles that were written, the follow-up, the rebuttal, makes some excellent points about how this was a trial, and its narrative was deliberately negative, because if you really think about it, the one side was arguing, yes, the sales should go through, and here's why, and because the sales are so bad. And yes, this company definitely needs basically, a bailout, if you will, or a takeover because the sales are so bad. So if you look at it from, through a trial attorney's eyes, you see holes in the argument, if you will.
Right. And some of the statistics too. So they were talking a lot about, sales for, books that had received this large advance, or books that were being written by very famous people with very large platforms, people that are very well known, who were getting these larger advances. And it's important to note too, they weren't talking about lifetime sales. They were talking about annual sales, like the first year that the book was out. And the interesting stats, I think, are really the deeper dive into the backlist. So books that are powerhouses that earn money year after year after year, children's books or classics, or books that have become classics. They were referencing like Carrie by Stephen King, books that continue to earn money year after
Hungry
year.
Caterpillar, the Bible.
It was an interesting thing, but of course we all went, what? People don't buy books, but we all read it. I mean, I don't even know what her stats must be. She's got 16, as of last night when I printed this out, so I'd have it, handy. There were 1,631 likes, 631 comments, and 388 shares on this article. And that's it did. And that's far less than the rebuttal articles are getting. Or far more, I should say. It's far more than these rebuttal articles. So the narrative that has spread, and I guess really today we want to unpack some of this because it really makes us think certain things about the publishing industry that aren't true, but there are some truths in here as well.
Right. And you have, you documented your search for an agent, and subsequently it would be a search for a publisher.
Yes.
After you acquire an agent, you are pitching to publishers and you're hoping to get published through that, that method versus an indie, right? And when you stand back as an author trying to work your way into this book publishing world, I went and, did some research too and read about it. And Bob Mayer, I really enjoyed his take on this whole thing. And he quoted Terry Gilliam, who said, if you want to have a future in the arts, you have to have patience, stamina, thick skin, and a kind of stupidity. A mule-like stupidity is what you really need. And his point was, you just can't give up. No matter what, if people don't buy books, content is king. Produce what you want to write, and you'll find your audience. It may be 12 people. It may be 1,200 people. It may be 12 million. But the point is, if you believe in what you're doing, dig in with that mule-like stupidity or optimism, if you will, and do it, right?
Right.
Do it the best you can do.
Well,
So-
and that's true. It's the encouragement that we want to give everyone that's watching this or listening to this, that
Right.
that we're going to talk about these statistics, but don't freak out.
Don't freak out. And the other thing I pulled from this, it's a really excellent article. Again, it's from Medium. It was published on April 27th by Bob Mayer. And he's got several points. He goes through, I think, 10 points of a rebuttal himself for this.
Oh, does he? Awesome.
He does. And one of his points, which I totally agree with, no matter what side you're on, people do buy books, they are buying books. The book industry is mostly stable. Traditional paperbacks are the most purchased. Ebooks are coming on strong, but the extenuating circumstances in all of this, and this is what Bob Mayer points out, is time. Editors and publishers and agents are squeezed for time more and more, and that is impacting outcome more than anything else, according to Mayer, right?
Yes.
He is saying in the book industry, Val, you and I have talked about this, how crazy slow it is. And if, given our ages, we're 60 is the new 40, right?
Yes, it is.
we don't, if we want to produce the books we want to produce, we don't have time to wait 5 years to get it produced, our first
Right.
one, right? So we had to take action on our own behalf. But, he points out that time is a factor in producing all of books. And there are fewer people, less money in the traditional side, doing more work. So,
Right.
Anyway.
We shouldn't be surprised, right?
Right.
And we should also not be surprised when an industry then gravitates to people who are known commodities, meaning they have some star power already. And either because they're already very successful as authors and they're going to be bestsellers, out of the gate, right? The James Pattersons and Nora Roberts and Stephen Kings or whatever, right?
Right.
Or also people who are just well known as celebrities in some other aspect. You get a lot of that with memoir, contracts, where they're known for either there's notoriety. Sometimes it's not great what they've maybe done out in the world, but they know that there's going to be a readership for that book. This is where, I have to believe this is true because this was under oath, right? That they are giving the true stats. So the Penguin Random House guidelines for who gets what advance. Category 1. So I'm just going to read these. They're very fascinating. This is in the article. This is in the book, The Trial, with the transcripts, but this is then re-quoted inside this article. Category 1, lead titles with a sales goal of 75,000 units and up. The advance is $500,000 or more. We've all heard about the really giant advances sometimes people get. Category 2 are titles with sales goal of 25,000 to 75,000 units. Now, I'm sure that's spread across the different formats, right? Hardcover, paperback, ebook, I'm assuming. That's an advance of 150 to 500. Category 3, that's a sales goal of 10,000 to 25,000 units. That's advanced between 50 and 150. And then a category 4 title is a sales goal of 5 to 10,000 units with an advance of $50,000 or less. She makes the assertion, are you alarmed that the top tier is 75,000 units and up? I'm not really. Because this is their own type of accounting. And my guess is there is even a more finite accounting inside these tiers.
Right.
Because this is for trial purposes. They're not going to give away every single contract secret.
Right.
Unless they were asked point blank, this is a range. I take any single one of those tiers as an advance right away. Hello.
Right. But remember you take away your agent fee and then you take out taxes and
No, I
then people,
know.
and then the other side of that, how many of, okay, so these advances, how many of them earn out? Because even if you're well-known in term, let's say memoir, there are some recent ones that were high dollar
Oh,
advances that did not earn out
yes.
in terms of sales.
So let me quote this. So having a lot of, for instance, social media followers or fame doesn't guarantee it will sell. We all know that. The singer Billie Eilish, despite her 97 million Instagram followers and 6 million Twitter followers, sold only 64,000 copies within 8 months of publishing her book. Justin Timberlake sold only 100,000 copies in 3 years after he published his book. Snoop Dogg's cookbook, I'm sorry, what now? Saw a boost during the pandemic, but still only sold 205,000 copies. There's also some, political books. Ilhan Omar's book did not sell well. She's got a big following in, liberal circles, right? 26,000 copies. So it's an interesting thing. And people will say as well, I mean, this is a question that often gets asked of me when people are talking about their whole query adventures when they're headed in to try to find an agent or an editor. I'm really worried about my social media following, numbers. Like, I'm like, don't worry about it. Right. The best
somebody with tens of thousands Twitter followers, and she can't sell a manuscript yet. She's big on X, I should say, and hasn't sold a manuscript yet.
Can it help? Sure. Is it a reflection of maybe the fame that you have for whatever thing you do, like a singer or a politician or whatever? Sure. But it does not translate. Those audiences aren't always going to be the book buyers. So it's not a fair measure of things. It might be a measure as well of how well known you are, which then could maybe sell books, but it's not a good filter.
Right. It's not a good filter. And then that comes, and we've talked about this before, that the gap in there, right, is marketing and time. Was there a marketing push behind what was being conceptualized and written and then packaged and sold? Did the marketing hit that message? Is it an audience who wants to buy books? When you look at the breakdown of audiences for books, and I did a very brief one and looked, at who's buying books, what age group, education level. And there was another very fascinating quote that I found. This was from Publishers Weekly, and it was quite a while ago. The serious book market is quite small. The people who read a lot of books, who love a certain genre or two, right? That audience is very small. Yes. The people who might read 1 to 2 to 3 books a year, there's your general book audience, right? So you're thinking about who on the other end when these publishers are producing these books. And the other thing that got me was how few books traditional publishers put out, right? When you're looking at between 50 to 70 total titles a year.
Yes.
And you're one of the ones trying to get traditionally published. You go, wow. Are against me.
Well, and it's across many, many imprints. So I don't have the numbers, but if you were to look up Penguin, how many imprints Penguin Random House has, there's hundreds.
Yes.
There's hundreds. But you start to piece it out. Like if you're looking for someone who would, for instance, want your, cozy, humorous mysteries, well, you lop off tons of imprints, you get down to 2 or 3 per publishing house max. The big ones, but then you're looking at some smaller presses that can be called independent presses, and it starts to shrink. It just starts to shrink down. Like where can I live? Where can my book live? Exactly. Where will it fit?
The one thing about this article, now, nobody's buying books anymore. It's a sexy, if you will, title. And it got a lot of attention, and it's generating conversations about books, which is all good, right?
Yes, I agree with that.
People who want to know more, people who want to look into the book industry and see what works and what isn't. We're finding new people on Substack to read about, right? So overall, I think the blog post did a great service to book sales and authors and readers, people who want to know more. I think it reached its audience.
I think so too. And, we have to remember that this was a trial that was about the traditional publishing industry.
Right.
And in particular, Penguin Random House's numbers and Simon and Schuster's numbers. And they are big powerhouses. Does not cover any of the independently published authors out there who have said, no, I'm not going that route. One thing that she does talk about in her article, like the romance category has largely gone independent. So many, romance authors who had been published traditionally are like, I can reach my readers just fine on my own. And I then retain my earnings, or the majority of my earnings. Yeah.
Right.
They talk about Colleen Hoover, who has done both. She was independently published. She had contracts with traditional publishing houses. Statistics are funny. I mean, so I have a journalism degree. You've got multiple degrees. You got a communications degree, right? Or journalism. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can mess around with stats. I remember as part of my journalism degree, like we were required to take statistics courses, and
lies, damn lies, and statistics.
yeah. And I mean, I was like, oh God, I want to take this class. But in the end, we then had to create an opinion poll and then like analyze our own statistics. It was kind of fascinating. I really like spreadsheets and numbers, which is maybe makes me a strange writer. So in the rebuttal article, it was like, why is it so easy to mislead with book statistics? So if we're going to give anyone a tutorial today on like how to like look at these numbers and the things that are, out there. I mentioned the calendar year sales. So if you're going to read this book, The Trial, they only are referencing calendar year sales, not lifetime sales.
Calendar year sales for print, right? Not ebooks.
Yes.
Right. So you can.
I don't think it included ebooks. I don't think it did. And then when they talk about sales stats, they don't have like great historical data. So if they're like referencing like older, like really classic books, those stats just didn't really exist. They were talking about ISBNs, that's the International Seller Book Number. It's the identifier that all books get, but every format of a book gets that. So BookScan tracks the ISBN of a single book, but it does not track like the ebook, the audiobook, just the print sales. So like what you were saying. We were talking about like the overwhelm of how many ISBNs are issued in a year. And so they're doing these numbers like, oh, the sales are so bad because this many get issued, these numbers for all these books. But then they don't talk about how many of those are like really esoteric, like academic books. They're not meant for a large audience. They're put out for a very specific small audience. To lump them in with like mainstream, like fiction is a weird, thing. And don't forget, books covers other types of categories, crosswords, puzzle collections, adult coloring books. All these things get an ISBN, and they're not all literature. They're not all actual books to read. There's activity books. And then there's like the low content books, like journals that might have a pretty quote at the top of the page, but then you're supposed to be writing in a journal. Those get an ISBN too. You need to always read statistics with your skeptical hat on, I think. Does that make me cranky? I don't know if that makes me a cranky person.
You're never, I've never seen you cranky.
Oh, well, there are days. But I like podcast days, so we're good. We're good.
There we go.
Here's my take on this too. I like knowing this information.
Yes.
It does not really pertain to my life right now. Other than I was trying to, get an agent and get an editor. And obviously the way that the publishing industry works, the traditional industry does matter. But if I'm making the decision to be an independently published author, I'm going to make my own path. It's good to know this information. I always think,
excellent to know this information. The conversation that it's generating is valuable. I think it's important and it's valuable, and I love that we're able to talk about it on a podcast. And again, I'm quoting the Bob Mayer, the Medium article. The lesson is nothing is all good or all bad in publishing. A rejection is an opportunity to do it differently. So if you have the mule-like stupidity or determination, if you will, to do this, understand you're going to be rejected, and that is your opportunity to pivot and do it differently. And I'm going to say, let me interrupt there. And to do it differently could be two different ways. You could be asked to revise your manuscript. Right.
Someone in the traditional industry might say to you, you're almost there. I'd be interested if this would be, revise and resubmit. And they give you, some guidance. And then you're like, you have to make a decision at that point. Am I willing to revise this and change where I was headed with this story to please somebody in the industry who I feel should know better what will sell? It does take a team approach if you're looking to traditionally publish, or it's the other, which is you pivot away from trying to get people to like what you've written, and you're confident enough that you can go straight to the reader.
Oh, I'm an optimist. I'll always look at the glass half full. Just born that way. I think it goes with being a sunrise person, but I just think that there's more good to take away from this article than bad, because think about what how willing you are to go do a deep dive into learning more about the industry, how many people you can connect with who have a point of view like you do, to look at statistics, to analyze what's really being argued, and to understand where you fit into the whole picture of it. Okay, and believe me, if you have a book in you and you want to write that book, you have a place. There's a place for you, whether it's traditional or whether it's indie or it's with a small press. You might not get the $500,000 advance, but very few do.
Mm-hmm.
So, do the best you can do with what you're learning. Another thing I learned about reading about this was, it's the entertainment business, right? And so if you compare it with the movie business or the sports business, college sports, for example, the one sport, usually football, carries all the others, right? The income that the football team makes from the big games and everything else it filters down to support others.
Yes.
So I was just talking about, the Anne Hathaway movie, she's obviously a star, she makes a lot of money, but what she does, whatever money, for example, she makes for this Amazon film that she's in, may trickle down and also assist with making other films that may not make money or just break even. So there's an opportunity to be very grateful for the big authors. There's a way to look at this that isn't, oh no, the book industry is in free fall, it's a disaster for everybody. No, it isn't.
It isn't.
They are selling, the publishers are there, the agents are still there, they want to know about your book, they may or may not accept it, but what you do when you submit to them and query them and get feedback makes you better.
So even though like my query process wasn't successful to get an agent, I had to think through how I presented my story with the materials that agent was going to get, the queried letter, the summary, the synopsis, the first few chapters, and you're trying to make your best impression. But if you aren't thinking that through, you're doing your story a disservice. And if you say, don't do that and you jump straight to independently publishing, then you're missing some marketing steps, really. And framing your book properly so that people who, skim past it, they're, scrolling or whatever, they can go, oh, there we go, because you summarized well, because you've done your due diligence. What am I getting with this book? Does the cover indicate what I'm getting? Does the description indicate it? Does the log line indicate what I'm going to get?
Right. So that's extremely well said. Yes, in terms of writing a book, you need those materials, whether you want to write them or not.
Nobody ever wants
that short description. You need the 1 or 2 line description of whatever it is that you're writing, so that people on the other end of it, again, everybody's pressed for time. We want to know what it's about in a sentence or two. And it's not,
Right.
It's not that we don't believe in what you're doing. It's that we want to know what we need to know in the moment.
Well, and that circles back to the time element. No one has enough time. And if you're an agent or an editor getting, I don't even know, 50, 100, 200, I don't know how many queries a day, you have to be able to skim through and look, is this intriguing? Is this even something I'm looking for my list? Is this, will this line or two pull me in to read the rest of that letter? Oh, now I want to read the, sample chapters that came with or whatever.
Right.
So I don't feel grumpy about this whole process. Oh, it set me back, yada, yada, yada. No, I went into this with eyes wide open. I think the querying process did make my manuscript and my, just presentation of my materials better. In a way, I'm one step ahead now for the independent publishing process because
I thought were you going to the small presses next?
Here's where I'm at. No, newsflash. I do have some pending small presses who do not require an agent. However, I am not holding my breath. And I am moving forward with all the things that I need to do in these coming months for marketing this book, assuming that I will put it out independently. And if I don't, then I'm that much further ahead. Like if I get a yes from a small press, Great. Awesome. Then I have all that marketing information and all that planning already done, which I'm going to need anyway.
Yes, you're going to need it anyway.
Truly though, and you touched on this, that I'm just incredibly hopeful and positive really about this industry, and that this feels like a negative take, but it really isn't. It really shouldn't be. And you went through all these places where you can find places to publish. There are homes for your work. And what's nice is that, given, say we'd have to go back probably to like what, pre-Kindle, pre-Create Space, where the self-publishing or independent publishing platforms really took off, and they like that switch over from vanity press to a way to easily reach your readers without having like a garage full of books, right?
Yep.
And we are lucky. We are so incredibly lucky that we have these options. And a lot of authors publish all these different ways. They may have been traditionally published and they've shifted to independent publishing. They may have been with a big house and now they're with a smaller press. Some people write shorter pieces. They don't write like full-length books, and they're finding great success with placing essays and articles and opinion pieces in different places, in different journals. Really, I think the sky's the limit for anybody. You need to be persistent. And there's certainly days that, the no's, the rejections, whether it's for a journal or for a full length book, they get you down. But we have more opportunity than ever to get our work out.
We have more opportunity than ever. And the big five, they're there. They've been around for a long time. Obviously, they've set the standard for the industry, and they are very important for the industry. I have a personal theory. This is not based in any sort of scientific study. My working theory is that, like every other industry, it will fragment out. I think there's going to be a rise of medium-sized presses who serve regional audiences. For example, Southern
Oh,
fiction.
regional. I see. Not subject-based, but regional.
Regional.
Interesting.
Right. I mean, and there are subject-based, like you have Kensington and you have Crooked Lane, right? And mysteries, right?
And there's a lot of romance imprints too.
So I think there is room for that middle, medium-sized publisher who could go to subject only, right? And they do, and or region. So I think the market is ripe for that much faster acting, again, time is a factor, much faster acting, medium-sized publisher who comes in and says, look, I know the readers of this area. I'm going to serve what they need, even nonfiction and fiction. And I think the Midwest is part of that. I think you and I have talked before we began about the fabulous writers here.
Oh my gosh, so many. In a way too, we've talked about sometimes this being East Coast centric, right? The publishing industry is very, very New York centric. Sometimes they don't get the Midwest. They don't get the Midwest. And I was talking with one author, and there was something that a publisher wanted to take out of her book, and it was something to do with like drive-in, for food, like drive-ins, which, Sonic, hello, we still have those. I think the editor was a city girl who had never been to one of those. And those, I guess, are not urban things. Look, we're the WisMissus. What are we going to say?
Yes.
But I thought, wait, what? Like, this isn't something from the 50s. They still have those where people come out to the car. It is 2024, just so y'all know, when we're like doing this, we're not in a time warp.
Not in the 50s. Yeah.
I like your idea then. I mean, like the idea of regional people running regional, small presses that can create a wonderful opportunity for people writing things that have an audience. There is an audience for these stories. It just may not be immediately recognizable by people who have a very different worldview and experience.
And just my takeaway from the conversation and reading about this, first the shock of nobody's buying books anymore.
Yes, which of course,
yeah. Yes. And then you go, oh no, but then you read a little bit more, you think about it for yourself, you go find more information, you read people who are encouraging, who've been in the business for a long time, and they give out some information that I think is very, very helpful. And I just want to repeat, there's room for us in it.
No, there is. And I see so many independently published authors doing very, very well. The opportunity is there. And none of this, like we say, if we want to end on a really, really happy note, none of this should stop us from being the creators that we are. Exactly. We just need to find our path forward to get our books in the hands of our readers. So
well said.
So there.
I second the motion.
So that's it for today. So what we were going to talk about today was book launch and book promotion, I believe. That was our originally like book launch tasks and promotion. So that's moved to next month, everybody. But if you're interested in that and you're listening to this, check out episode 6 for that, because we had to interrupt a regular scheduled programming for this important discussion today. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.